second.
Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the SoulFul Talks. Thank you, Dorothy, for being here. Thank you that we can do another live talk. And today the topic is Heal the Child, Free the Adult. We already had, I was looking at the dates. It was exactly a year ago and a few days that we were doing Inner Child, which is quite interesting to look back how time flies and how this topic is still very much needed and important. So it would be nice to go maybe a bit deeper because I feel that with this topic we could talk for hours because it's very very big and healing inner child and connecting with inner child. I think it affects everything in our lives, what we live and how we react and how we stay in the relationships. So, would you like to say something, or should I start with the questions? Or
Well, I, I didn't remember that it was a year ago. I I just love this topic, it's one of my favorites. And I really think that this whole healing the inner child and freeing the adult is absolutely necessary because many of us, without knowing, we drive on autopilot. We are living some version of survival that we are not aware of. It's almost like I'm living me, but whose life am I actually living? And in my practice as a therapist, I often encounter clients who initially, when they are confronted with that vulnerable younger part of themselves, the inner child, that they actually reject them. It's not necessarily so that once you meet your inner child and you hug them and then the world is glorious, but very often there is an inner almost rejection. It's almost as if we are rejecting that part of ourselves, and the true freedom of the adult version of ourselves, the real self, I think is not possible if we don't embrace our inner child. So this is why this whole topic is, for me personally, not only a very intimate one, but I think the most rewarding for me. So I feel this kind of work is really the essence of what we need to do to become all we really are, basically.
Mhm.
So yes, please start with your question. Sorry.
No, no, no.
I'm getting carried away with this topic, as you know. It's one of
That's
my
great.
favorites.
We can have a structure, we can have questions, but it's always nice to follow up with the flow and just whatever you feel like sharing, feel free. You don't have to have a... Okay, so since the topic is called Heal the Child, Free the Adult, what does it mean to free the adult after healing the child? What would you say about this?
I think raising the awareness that we are actually having a part in ourselves. So it's not that we are, I mean, you are one person, okay? But you have a multitude of inner aspects or a multitude of parts, so to say, that make you you. And one of them, not one of them, but a very big part of ourselves is the inner child that we had to leave behind. And without awareness of that part, for me, it feels almost like we are not living authentically. We are living in survival mode, we are living in protective mode. We are not expressing ourselves as the fullness of all our qualities and our traits and our wonderfulness, our humaneness, but we are living a restricted, a small part that might have been acceptable when we were little, but it's not us, it's not who I really am. And only when I'm embracing the parts of myself that felt rejection and that felt abandonment and that felt neglect, only when I'm approaching them and when I'm healing them, when I'm integrating them back into who I am, only then can I start to live in connection, in a connective mode instead of protective survival mode. Because this protection mode, without us knowing that, it costs us a lot. It costs us personally, and it costs us in relationship, and it costs us also when it comes to our whatever your work, whatever your occupation is. So in the professional life, in the professional realm, we see a lot of performing adults. We see a lot of adults that chase validation or constantly have to prove something, and maybe they are people pleasers, maybe they don't have boundaries, maybe they, take on too much, striving for perfection or suppress emotions. And well, as you know, as the work is called emotions are a very important part of life. They are not the only thing, okay? But when we are habitually suppressing all our emotions, we are suppressing a very, very alive part, a very vibrant, authentic part of ourselves. So instead of earning our, how can I say, earning the right to be through some kind of performance, to live authentically also means that we embrace our emotions and allow them to be there without acting them out, but not even, how can I say, not the opposite that we see in a lot of people that are like, I cannot possibly be emotional, because then we're also losing expression, we're losing connection, we're losing authenticity. So yeah, well, once we heal our inner child, we can actually be the adult that we were not meant to be, but the adult that we can be, the one that we can choose to be, instead of running on autopilot and burning out, trying to be a version of ourselves that can find approval and validation, which is very stressful, as we know.
Yeah, so you mentioned that it affects our relationships and everyday life. So the next question would be, how can unresolved childhood wounds silently shape our relationships, reactions, choices, but also relationship with our own bodies, rest, pleasure, and self-care?
Well, when we are running in the survival mode, and I've spoken about this wheel of the nervous system that I created. When we are running on autopilot, a lot of our natural abilities, a lot of our beauty of our humaneness is not available. And in relationships, when we are running on autopilot, when we're trying to survive, when we're trying to protect ourselves, we are not available for our partners or not available for our colleagues at work, because the priority in our nervous system is survival above self-expression. So for our psyche, for our nervous system, it is more important that I stay in the safe zone, although it might be unhealthy, but that I stay in what I'm used to do and not express myself fully, because it was not approved of or it wasn't safe when I was a child. And the problem is that then I'm shrinking back from standing my grounds and asking for my needs. I might not even be aware of my needs. So not only can I not speak them freely, but I'm also maybe not even able to feel them. Maybe I feel like I have to deny what I need, really. And also, a lot of us, when we still, are in survival mode, we fear intimacy because we cannot let anybody in because it's not safe. So we are struggling to ask for help. We are overthinking our relationships. We are not setting boundaries. We feel unworthy of love. And even then, when some partner comes in who really approves us and who can see behind the facade of my competence, my whatever perfection, something, and even if somebody comes in who wants to give us safety, who wants to really connect with the true version of ourselves, we don't trust that, because we haven't learned to trust. We haven't learned to trust another, but we also haven't learned to trust ourselves. So when we were wounded as children, if we don't heal that inner child, if we ourselves don't make a connection to that part of ourselves, then it almost feels like we can't trust ourselves and we can't trust anybody else either. So this lack of trust expresses in our relationships. So we hunger for connection, we hunger for love and appreciation and all the good things. But then when it comes our way, we are, shrieking away. It's almost like we're panicking away. Our nervous system runs us to seek out environments that we grew up in that are probably not even healthy for the version we are as original, authentic self. And the problem is the wounds don't stay in the past. They move into our presence and express themselves continuously in everything we do. If we don't raise awareness, if we don't bring them up, if we don't start to heal them, because this whole cycle of feeling ashamed of ourselves, feeling ashamed of our needs, running into anger and I don't know, anxiety and whatever else, so running our habitual emotions instead of expressing our need for care, our need for pleasure and so on, how can I say, it distorts our self-expression. So we cannot be in relationship as everything we are, but we are trying. It's almost like we're trying to make a relationship a way that we can control it, so that we can feel safe enough in that relationship. But as we don't know what safety feels like, we cannot allow it. So it's almost we're seeking it and then we're running away from it. So we want it, but we can't have it. We are inviting it. We are desiring it, but we are the minute we almost getting it, we close the doors because it's not safe. And our nervous system, funny enough, not funny enough, it's actually very sad. We run for safety 100 times more than we run for pleasure or fulfillment. These things like pleasure, fulfillment, expressing myself, living my gifts, we will only do that once we feel safe enough. And if we didn't encounter this feeling of safety in myself and in relationship, when we didn't encounter this, then we play the games we always played, and we are not, how can I say, available for a reciprocal relationship. So we are either defending too much and running away too much, or we are constantly trying to manipulate, to control, to hold the relationship in a fear-based way. So, well, the pattern that we had as children becomes like a pattern for life itself. So we take that and put it into our relationship to ourselves, our relationship to other people, and to life. And this includes, because you mentioned body and self-care, this can also mean that I'm neglecting my body because I haven't learned how to look after myself. I haven't learned what proper rest, what proper play, what proper self-care looks like. So I'm overindulging, or I'm being too small in my intake of pleasure and rest, for example. But hey, I'm going into detail again.
No, it's great.
Your questions are always wonderful, but they make me like,
You already answered like 3 other questions, so it's perfect. You don't have to worry about that because it's nice. But I really love what you said because we had a few days ago with Ali live stream on Instagram about your work, about the seminars, about what it brought to our lives, and we also got into topic of safety. And it's really interesting to see how we always get back to this topic because safety is the first thing. And I realized when we were talking with Ali that I thought when I didn't have experience through my body what safety is, I thought it's something else, that it's only physical safety, but it's mostly emotional safety why we are not able to open. So it was really interesting to see how the patterns, like you said, are taking us somewhere. And then once we start living in and when there is a person approaching us, then we feel that, okay, until we really experience what does it mean, then if I wouldn't experience what safety means through my body, I thought it's something else. So this is really, really a big one. And it also, another questions was about safety. What happens when the inner child never truly felt emotionally safe? And why is emotional safety such an important part of healing? So I think this is, yeah, good that we talk about it because it's so deep and I never thought it's so strong until I felt it in my body. Otherwise, I would think that's something else.
Well, it's also okay, safety. As an adult, as a human being, we know that there is no absolute safety. Okay, so you can always die now, but the relative safety is what I said earlier, safe enough. So our nervous system has an internal setting. When we feel safe enough, we switch, okay? We let our guard down, we switch into a different branch or different part of our nervous system. And this makes us friendly, connective, helpful, available, open, emotionally open, and so on. Now, the problem is when we as children didn't have caregivers, and it doesn't have to be our parents, it could be a grandparent, a teacher, somebody else. If we didn't have an adult that could provide the feeling, the felt emotional safety, but also, which is a catchword nowadays, psychological safety. When we didn't have this, our body is in a constant alert mode. So it's constantly bracing against life. It cannot exist without fear. Its emotions are not allowed. You know, it feels like weakness when we let our guard down. And the problem is that what we are seeking instead of safety as a replacement could be perfectionism, control, and so on. So my body has forgotten kind of what true safety feels like. In an ideal world, you know, my parents or caregivers would have provided enough psychological, emotional, and physical safety, obviously, that I can switch into that part of my brain, which children usually automatically do. The playful one, you know, the creative one, the curious one, you know, that exploring life, embracing life, drinking in life. But if we didn't have this, if we were growing up in an atmosphere of chaos or with emotional neglect, okay, we had enough to eat, we have had a roof over the head, we were provided for, we had education, but we didn't have emotional connection, then something happens which is not known to ourselves, which is that the blueprint for I am accepted in the world, I am safe as who I really am, is missing. Okay, there is a part missing in ourselves, which makes us constantly wobble on eggshells because we cannot rest in ourselves. We cannot stand as this is me, I'm here, and deep down in the core of my being, without knowing here, but feeling, I can feel that I am safe, acceptable. I can trust myself. I can trust life. I can trust other people. So when this piece is missing inside myself, I can talk to myself till the cows come home. I can repeat beliefs into the mirror until whatever, next year. It is not going to convince my body that it is okay. I need the felt sense. I need the physical embodied experience of I'm switching, I'm opening, it is safe in the presence of another competent caregiver. Okay. And this could be a replacement mom. This could be my partner or somebody like this. I can do that at a seminar, for example. I can get this jump start for my nervous system of, that's what it feels like. And then I'm starting to explore. But I have to give my nervous system like a treat. I have to feed it spoon a spoon. I have to spoon feed my nervous system slowly, slowly. Because a lot of people, when they go to therapy or they go to coaching and they say, oh, I want to blah blah blah, and then they get safe, they don't trust it. They say, no, I cannot trust this. I will not let my guard down, because now all of a sudden this kindness coming my way, this allowing, accepting, loving feels dangerous. And that is what makes me really sad, because I see a lot of people who would so love to open up and so love to heal. But when they get to that corner, when they get almost there, they shut the door again, because the whole nervous system goes into alert, alert. We cannot possibly allow rest, comfort, pleasure, love, because then dot dot dot. And this then might not even be filled with a memory. I might not have a memory of what happens when I connect and am emotionally open and feel safe and let kindness and love come in. I might not know what will happen because I have no memory anymore for this, but I have this feeling of dread, this feeling of, whoa, it's threatening, it's not okay. And a lot of people, this is why we see so much burnout, physical burnout, emotional burnout, because people have forgotten how to feel safe enough to rest. So they are stressing, performing, doing, but they cannot really rest sufficiently, because the nervous system will not allow the feeling of letting go and opening up. It's not okay.
So do you think that if we like, can adult life ever feel fully peaceful if the inner child still feels unsafe? Do you think it's possible?
I have my doubts. I don't think so. Because if this curious, connected, creative, fun-loving, self-expressive, if this part of ourselves is not allowed, is not integrated, doesn't feel safe enough to be here, then I always have to be dry and rigid and performing and this and that and the other thing. And I can look successful on the surface. But we know, okay, a lot of us, we look competent, okay, and people turn to us for help, and we are the pillar to rely on, and we are the strong ones, and we take care of everybody, and we don't have needs and blah. But deep down, we are hungry birds. We are empty. We are running on empty. We feel like there's no fuel left in the tank, because there's nothing fulfilling coming in, because we cannot allow it to come in. So even if people praise us, even if they, it's nice for a short while. It's kind of like, yeah, and then hungry again. It's like a shot of heroin. So it never really fulfills you, but it keeps you going. Okay. It motivates you to go longer and faster and further, but it doesn't really satiate you. Like, I'm a grandma. And I love my grandchild. And she's still being breastfed. And you know that feeling when you see a baby who gets the breast and they are drinking and then they are satisfied and they are full and they kind of like, they drop from the breast, kind of. This feeling, if you had enough of this as a child, it doesn't have to be breast milk, but if you had this feeling of being held and cared for and satiated, and when you learn, when your little baby nervous system, child nervous system learns, I will get fed, I will get held, people are going to pick me up when I cry, and they're going to do something about my discomfort. When you learn this as a baby, you also learn fulfillment, satisfaction, pleasure, play. You learn to love yourself. You play with your body, you play with the world, you play with another adult, and it's safe and it's just the most normal thing on the planet. But when that doesn't happen for reasons, because the mother is, I don't know, stressed or unavailable or has emotional problems or is alone herself and so on. If something goes wrong, and a lot can go wrong easily without it being anybody's fault, when this is happening, then the baby doesn't learn that it's safe to fill yourself and drop from the tit and fall asleep, but it learns to stay alert. It learns to stay with mama and not allow her to go away and all the rest. Or it learns never to cry. Interestingly enough, it's not just one version that can happen, but it can go in both directions. Babies can learn not to have any needs anymore, or babies can learn to keep the primal caregivers close to themselves by fuzzing and crying and, trying to keep them engaged when they have them. Or they learn the opposite. It doesn't matter what I want and what I feel. And they give up on life. They give up on asking for what they need, because the feeling is, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to get it anyway. But this fulfillment that we naturally have when we get our needs covered, okay? We are not very greedy creatures, okay? We can survive on very little. But without that, we also, as adults, we don't know satisfaction anymore. So we're striving, we are constantly struggling, we are doing, we are performing, we are, for what? For not feeling truly satisfied, truly stilled in our desires. We don't feel full. We feel empty.
So imagine that there is a person who is starting to be aware of all of this, what we are talking about, and how can we start listening to inner child instead of constantly trying to fix or silence it?
Well, this is what I said in the beginning. Unfortunately, it is not enough to accept that we have an inner part that might not have been completely satisfied. We also have to accept this part. We have to integrate this part to heal it really. And it doesn't mean fixing and improving ourselves even more. And that is the problem. A lot of people say, okay, I do the inner child work so I can be better at something, so that I fix this inner child so that it's gone, so that I don't have to feel this discomfort anymore, so I don't have to feel that pain anymore, that emotional pain anymore. But this is not what it's all about. It's about really integrating it, and healing the inner child doesn't mean I have to relive all my childhood and every experience and all the memories, not at all. So it's definitely not about reliving the trauma. It's about sitting with ourselves like you would with a baby. You pick it up from the floor and you hold it to your body, you hold it to your own chest, and you try to find out what it is. And it's, is it a tooth is coming? Is it the diapers are wet? Is it hungry, or does it have to sleep? It's simple. Life is simple when we stay connected. Then it's solvable. Yeah, teasing is not fun. Currently, you can you might imagine. Currently, we're going through teething, okay, and it's stressful and we don't like it. But this is in our adult life, it's the same. We have periods that are stressful and uncomfortable, and we feel, ouch, it feels like teething. and and well, you know, it's good when we have another adult at that time where I can say, oof, I'm going through something. Can I just vent? Can I just express myself? And we need to do the same with our inner children. We need to sit with them without judging constantly. So, being a good parent for our inner children means really allowing the emotions and sitting with them with curiosity instead of saying, you should not feel this way, you should not have this need, you should be better, you should, whatever. Instead of this, approaching ourselves with curiosity and kind of like inquiring, okay, so we are feeling fear, anger, shame, guilt, whatever. Interesting. So if there might be a reason for this emotion, is there a reason? Do we have something that happened right now to bring this emotion up? Yes, wonderful. What can we do about this? No. Okay, it's not here now. So maybe it's an old backpack emotion, something from our past that's being triggered at the moment. So maybe this emotion is trying to protect us in some way, is trying to, make us survive in some way or the other. So if I'm approaching this with kindness, compassion, curiosity, sitting with my inner child saying, okay, I hear you. This is painful. I understand. Okay. I don't have to do a lot because very often it's more about my inner child needs to be accepted like I needed to be accepted as a child. So my inner child now needs my acceptance. So I am my adult part, my resourceful self, the big me, needs to really sit with my inner child and be the good parent we might not have had, you know. My parents were very well-meaning, okay? They were really trying, but they were not entirely successful in everything they did because they had their own issues. I'm not blaming them for that. But there were things that were missing. And it's not my fault, okay? There's nothing wrong with me so that this happened to me. This is what a lot of us believe. There's something wrong with me. Okay, as children, we don't have another explanation. If my parents don't love me the way they should and they don't treat me the way I would like to, there must be something wrong with me, right? It has to be my fault. And we carry this feeling into adulthood. So we always feel wrong, defective, not good enough, not worthy enough. So, of course, they can't love me because I am da da da. But to turn this around, we actually have to sit with ourselves and allow ourselves to be accepted by ourselves. So that this feeling of guilt and shame and unworthiness and unlovability and so on, that this has a chance of dissolving simply because I learn I am enough for myself. I have a right to exist independently of what I'm doing. And sometimes when I'm practicing with my clients, so when they are learning to love themselves and to accept themselves and to take care of themselves and to really embrace who they are, also with forgiveness, I have to start with other people first. For many of us, it's easier to love somebody else or an animal or, take care of somebody else easier than taking care of us because we have learned not to do that. We have learned to monitor other people's feelings and so on. We have learned to be there for others, to be selfless and whatever else nonsense, and to be responsible, And this is what I like to say. It's not our fault that this happened, but it's our responsibility now to do it differently. And this responsibility, I would like to cut in to be able to respond differently. This is what is needed. That I'm not punishing myself for who I am. I'm not punishing myself for my needs, for my wants, my desires, for me being stupid and curious and something else, but that I'm really able to be with myself even when it's not comfortable, even when I'm teasing, kind of.
Thank you. I have some questions prepared, but now I thought of asking you how it was for you, this inner child topic. You mentioned a little bit with your parent, but what was the thing or the tool or the way of living that helped you the most to heal? I know, as we said, it's not like I heal and then it's done. Of course, it's all the time, a lot of work and attention towards ourselves. But what was, how was it for you?
Well, I think I mentioned that last time already. I was actually studying psychology. I was already working as a therapist in an agency, and it was all about trauma and developmental trauma, and it was about addictions and a lot of things. And I realized that my own healing was not complete yet, because I realized that I wanted to help other people. I wanted to be there for trauma survivors and so on and so on, because there was something I myself would have needed when I was growing up, or when I was traumatized. I would have needed something. And I felt like I wanted to provide that. And then I realized that even if I provide this, I'm burning myself out, because I cannot allow the positive response, the appreciation, the acceptance, and so on. I cannot let that in. It felt almost like I had Teflon around me. So I can provide, I can caretake, I can do therapies, and I can be there for other people until I burn out, because nothing is coming in. I cannot, I cannot really let it in. And then I realized, because um, I felt almost like I needed to help. So it was a bit of I needed to help, I needed to fix, I needed to do something. And then I realized, whoa, 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 that's not good at all, because I'm kind of projecting my own pain onto other people and trying to help them so that I feel better. And then I was radically sitting down with myself and saying, okay, what's the missing link here? What is empty inside? Where in my body is that place where I'm holding this pain? And I discovered a lot of pain, and it wasn't very pleasant, because at that point in time I had tools, but I have much better tools now. So I needed to find the right tools to help myself. And the biggest of them was actually turning towards the body and the nervous system. Because intellectually, with understanding my pain, it wasn't done, it wasn't going away. I was raising awareness, but then there was the pain. So now, what are we going to do now? You know, we've got all the pain. And what now? And we are realizing, we are stressing. I'm realizing that my nervous system is in constant survival mode. But how do I turn this around? So I needed to develop tools. And I found the tools in the nervous system regulation and the trauma tools. And I realized that if I really want to live my own life, I have to learn to forgive myself for my own past. And I realized that inside of myself, there was a part that I rejected. There was no love coming for this part, because it was to be blamed for all my mistakes, all my past, all my pain. You're at fault. I wasn't even blaming my parents. I was blaming myself for everything that happened. And I had to really do radical forgiveness, which means I had to really feel the pain that I wanted to avoid for my whatever. What was I, 34 years old? I was really old, 30 years old. I wanted to undo the pain, explain it away, rationalize it away, and I couldn't. I had to accept that it happened, I had to forgive my parents, obviously, at some stage, but you know, all the blaming somebody else was not really doing it. Deep down, I knew, yeah, I'm blaming them. I'm blaming life. I want something. I feel like I should have something. I deserve something. But deep down, I wouldn't let it in. You know, it was like, I'm blaming you, but I'm not accepting um, that it wasn't your fault either. You know, I'm kind of like playing a game by blaming outwardly and also wanting something from the outside. And when I turned to radical forgiving myself, I realized the solution is not getting it from them, not even from my partner, but the solution is getting it from myself. And this is sometimes so difficult because depending on what exactly went wrong and how exactly we were neglected, it can feel like I'm constantly running after something that I can never achieve. It's like somebody put a stick of with a carrot in front of my nose and I'm running. So I had to sit with myself and I had to do the work myself, with myself. And only once I turned towards this little part in myself and I understood that my body is holding this pattern. Only then could I start to change it from the body up. And it wasn't so much about understanding my thinking. I did, you know, I had studied it actually, but it was about training my brain by using the body. So I had to use my body to create new conditions, new experiences, so that my brain could change and learn. Because what we are talking about here, about all the old patterns, they are so old. They are usually so deep in our brain, so deep in our memory, in our not so conscious, in our subconscious. To change them is really hard because we need new experiences to do that. But we cannot have the experiences because we don't allow them. So it's like a vicious circle. And to break this, we have to lean into the discomfort and feel probably best with another person, safe enough to stay in it, so that we can come out the other side, so that our body has a new experience, so that the brain can learn something new. Because this whole body never lies, it's kind of true. So our body is telling us the truth of this moment for ourselves. How is my experience in this moment? And it could be that it's a conditioned version of myself from the past. So my body is shying away from intimacy, from self-expression, from needs, from safety, from boundaries. My body is freaking out, shying away, because my nervous system goes into alarm, 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 alarm. So I have to let my body feel something else, experience something else, so that my brain says, oh, interesting, new experience. Let me make sense of it. So we're using the body to teach the brain, more or less. And my old mistake in my own life, my mistake was I wanted to do everything with my brain. I wanted to use my mind to change my life. And to a degree, we all know it is successful. We can do a lot with mind and not everything. It's I think I think I spoke about this example earlier. It's like a kiss. How can you study a kiss? Your brain can understand what happens, how the lips connect and how much pressure you do and what you're doing with it. But you will not know what a kiss is, and you will not know how to kiss if you don't do it. Okay? And this is the same with safety. This is the same with learning to be myself. We have to do it. And we have to do it in a way that our brain says, interesting, good experience, let's do it again.
Thank you very much for sharing. So it's really beautiful. So for anyone watching, if you would like to experience what Dorothy was talking about, we have an upcoming seminar of Inner Child in Bratislava at the end of June. from 26 to 28. So what would you say to a person who is still hesitating if he or she should or should not come? Maybe they're like, okay, but it's still another seminar and so much work, but there's still patterns repeating in my life, and I'm still not sure if I want to go. And the big group of people, I meet people who are always like, not sure, but then when they come, they're so happy. But there are people who are looking at it and still don't know if to join or not. So if you would like to maybe say a few words on that.
Yeah, what can I say? It is usually a lot of fear and apprehension before we go to this kind of seminar, because these parts that we want to heal, they feel like our biggest weaknesses. So it feels like our inner child, or the part of us that was wounded, it feels like a liability almost. So how can I be authentic in front of people? How can I be vulnerable and open in front of people? Well, the good news is that our nervous system, our brain, was absolutely designed for existence in a small tribe. You know, our nervous system is designed to feel safe with other people and to learn and grow and belong to a tribe. And at these seminars, it's not so much about, you know, what you do exactly, but what happens there is, with the trainers and with myself, we create an atmosphere that makes it possible for each individual nervous system to co-regulate, so regulate with another nervous system. And it's something that doesn't really happen with words or with something. It happens in the movement. It happens in the in the in the experience. In, you can say, the energy at the seminar. There is an embrace through the trainer team and myself. There is an embrace where people kind of go, I don't know what it is, but something is inviting me to be here, to be myself. And we see that, I mean, of course, you're nervous. When you're going into something new, it's very normal that there's a feeling of, ooh, what's going to happen? But then, within the first morning, really, or the first few hours, because we're starting at lunch, the first few hours, something happens. It clicks kind of, and it's like an immersion. So I'm starting to toe dip, and then, oh, interesting. And then two toes, and then half a foot, and so on. So my body is immersed into an experience that changes things on a not so conscious level. So it's almost working on autopilot. And you can't recreate that with reading a book or learning about inner child work. That's not possible. You have to actually do it. You have to have the experience. And this is what I discovered for myself, and this is why I designed all these tools, because you have to create a corrective experience. So you have to offer something where your body says, let me try that, and I try this just a little bit, like one zip, let's try it. Oh, interesting. And then my body comes and wants more and does it, and and this is why people keep coming back also, because it's there is a feeling that I do remember. and I know it's working. I know it's changing something. It's changing my experience of life. And I can finally stop surviving and start living. But as you mentioned, a seminar, I also want to mention it's not just the inner child end of June in Bratislava, but it's also the stress and trauma release in the beginning of June. And we also have, it's in Prague, but we also have a seminar that's called Connect Deeper. And it's happening in Bratislava and Prague. And this is one where you learn to really connect to yourself very deeply. So whether you make it to the stress and trauma relief or the inner child or the Connect Deeper, it doesn't really matter, because what you will get is this feeling of, I have permission to be myself. And the inner child work for me is very dear, because it's such a sensitive, such a important part. But if you can't make it to that seminar, the others are just as delicate, just as rewarding for your body and mind as the inner child work. So it's really, it's just one expression of the healing that we are undergoing to be the free adult that we actually are.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. And the very last question, if the inner child finally felt completely safe and loved and free, what kind of adult would emerge? How this world would look like?
You know, you would be real. Because,
Yes.
isn't it true that you see somebody, oh, they look so competent and they look so successful and so on, and then you spend a few minutes talking to them, and it's kind of like, it's almost like cardboard. You can admire them from a distance, but when you come closer, there's something missing. There is something that doesn't feel completely real because our nervous system wants to connect to another person. And if we cannot, because they are closed, because they are guarded, because they are protective, because they have layers of persona, shining, glistening, glossing, we don't buy it. We do not buy it. Our nervous system stays a little bit away. Yes, when I'm not healed, I might fall for the same kind of toxic person as I had in my youth, and I'm running after them to get another round of pain. That might be true, but deep down in myself, I know the difference. I know when something is real or not. And when we successfully integrate our inner child, we just become so much more of what we are. Our traits are so much more available for good things. So it's almost like you can ask yourself, okay, what am I really good at? So what is my special superpower? And once you got this, you can answer the question, okay, how does this superpower, this gift that I have, how is that a blessing to the world? How can that serve the world? And people who have integrated their inner child, they can answer the question. And the people who haven't, they might struggle. Because as long as we are still traumatized, we don't see our wonderful traits as superpowers. We see them as totally normal. Everybody can do that. But it takes for us to acknowledge what we went through so that we can then be available as the totality of what we are. And you know what? Life is just much more fun when we can be real, when we can be as human as we are, when we have the permission to be everything human.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone who are watching us, and hopefully we see you
Thank
soon
you.
in June.
Yes, and hope to see you in June somewhere down the line.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.